No GPS, no rules, no shame. Just a funky little quad in a soul train frame. Below, we fly that flow. Below, spread that gap. No time to nap. No time to nap. Hit that roll. Funk and control. Funk and control. Bounce that wall. Bounce that all. We fly it all. Funk it all. We fly it all. Funky and free, we fly indoors, we fly with glee. Whoop it, loop it, groove it, move it, bounce it, flip it, funk it, rip it, fly that soul, don't lose control. Tiny whoop love gonna make you whole. I thread the needle through the vinyl stacks, bounce off the mirror ball, never looking back. My quad's got soul, it's got style, it's got sass. It dips through the incense like a blast from the past. I'm flying figure eights through the lava lamp glow, dodging house plants like a funky pro. My whoops got rhythm, my sticks got heat. I'm the pilot of the party with the grooviest beat. I loop through the hallway, I dive by the broom. I'm the disco ghost in your living room. I hit that split, it's over grandma's chair. She just claps and says, boy, you got flair. I'm flying freestyle with a velvet touch. My quad so smooth it don't need a clutch. From the shag rug to the ceiling fan, I'm the funky little fly with a master plan. The curtains dancing on the breeze, freestyle funk in my living room with ease. Tiny whoop magic bumping every wall. I'm the James Brown of flight, can't stop at all.
My name's Aaron Ciotti. Everybody calls me Ciotti. Welcome to Sunday Q&A. I think we've found the limit of 12 amp ESCs, and we're going to talk about that tonight. It's also a Q&A live stream, and we're going to fly 6 batteries. So, Tiny Whoop fans, stick around. I might not actually fly 6. I'll probably only fly 5, maybe 4, but you should fly 6 batteries. Hashtag 6 batteries means today's the day to fly 6 batteries. So whenever you see that, fly. 6 Tiny Whoop batteries is about 20 to 30 minutes of flying. And if you fly for 20 to 30 minutes pretty much every day, or at least all the days that I live stream, which is 4 days a week, you are going to get a lot better as a pilot. That amount of time to fly is enough to like get used to what you're flying, get in the groove, and improve. And I did not mean for that to rhyme, but I love that it did. And so FPV is hard. Flying inside the house is extremely difficult. It's harder than flying outside. And so you got to put the time in and you got to put the repetition in. And so whenever you see 6 batteries, when you're on YouTube scrolling around or when you watch these live streams or whatever, fly your 6 today. If you can fly 7, do that. If you can fly 16 or 60, do that as well. But yeah, that constant repetition, 4 times a week, 5 times a week, 7 times a week, if you really want to get good, that is how you improve. And when you get really good, specifically at flying inside, it's the greatest thing ever because you can do power loops and matty flips and stalls and wall rides and knife edges and all the sick stuff that you do outside, inside when it's raining, when it's too hot out, when it's too cold out. But it's really difficult and you've got to put the time in. And so that is hashtag 6 batteries, my friends. Join me in the quest to get really, really good at flying FPV. Fly your 6 today, and tomorrow you will thank yesterday you, which is actually today you. Funny how that works. Dannon FPV with a 7-pound super chat. He says, sending a little love for what you do, brother. Thank you so much, Dannon. CiottiFPV.com has a million different ways that you can support me if you don't want to do a super chat. Patreon is the best possible way to support me. They take the smallest percentage, and there's a ton of benefits. You're going to be a part of the coolest community in FPV, the Gangly Gang, for as little as $3 a month, which is like 10 cents a day or like 20 cents per live stream. I have a feeling that I've saved you from buying something shitty at some point. Hook me up and throw a couple of those bucks back my way, and I'll test more stuff and tell you more stuff not to buy. Like the JHE MCU 12 amp AIO in the picture of in the thumbnail of this live stream. If you're going to be doing a big power 2.5 inch 2S build, this is the JHE MCU G474 ELRS. This is probably going to be totally fine for a 2-inch open prop build. Like this, or a 2-inch whoop. But if you go up to 2.5 and you want to make really good power, 12 amps is looking like it's not enough. And luckily there's a bunch of 20 amp 2 to 4S AIOs out there. And that's what I'm going to be moving to, and that's what we're going to talk about here tonight. So yeah, nothing against JHEMCU. I was asking too much from this. I was asking this to do 11,500 kV 1203s on 2S at almost 100 grams all up weight, and it was turning 47,000 RPM, which is a lot on a tri-blade 2.5 inch propeller. It survived 3 batteries of that abuse, and on the 3rd battery after a crash, after a big full throttle hit, and then like 10 seconds later a crash, one of the channel 1 FETs blew up, as you can see in the thumbnail. And I'm not totally surprised. And we're going to talk about what sort of the limits are on these ESCs in a little bit here. And it's not as confusing as you may think. 12 amp is going to be totally fun. 12 amp is what you want for everything up to 2-inch 1202.5. And then if you go beyond that, if you go bigger motor or 2-inch 2-inch prop 1202.5 motor, 10 to 11,000 kV. If you want to go beyond that amount of power, which means bigger propellers or higher kV or bigger motors, it's going to start to get risky. And so at that point, you want to definitely think about going to a 20 amp AIO or ESC or whatever. But yeah, we're going to dive into that in a minute here. Let's get caught up on chat first, though. YouTube did the thing, was the very first person in chat. Congrats. Striker was next. Dan and Eco, the Bruce, Fizz, Frank, Dr. Nicholas, Uke, Uriel, Andrew Taylor, Mick Mucus, Flemo Fly, Sir Lamo, or Lamo. Is it Lamo or Lamo? Just on Task, Off Axis, capital C. Hold on, let me get my water. Hold on, please. I'm all jacked up on caffeine, so buckle up, buttercups. Hey, the beginning of the live stream was actually this little fella. This is my, this started life as a Mobula 704, which is a fantastic bind and fly. That thing flies great. It's on the M80 frame, which swings 1.8 inch props, and I love it. It's awesome. There's nothing wrong with that build. I don't like the 1.8 inch prop thing. It's an awkward prop size. There is not a good propeller in that size that is durable and really well balanced. And so I wanted to have an 04 rig that... Why is the camera sitting sideways in here? Is that just me? Am I sideways, or is that camera sideways? I think the camera's sitting side. The canopy's sitting a little sideways. Right? Can you see that? Might just be me. Yeah, fantastic rig. Absolutely nothing wrong with it. But I wanted something that was able to fly freestyle on a propeller that's more durable. And I wanted to stay as light as possible to fly like this really fun style of freestyle in like front yard, backyard, where you can duck in and out of like your garden and like individual little flowers and stuff like that. And so I changed everything. I moved it to a modular. So I did loads of live streams about this particular build last year. Lots of testing, propellers, motors, different frames. And what I settled on is the canopy from the Mobula 704. This is the fixed up tilt. It's about 20 to 25 degrees of up tilt. No ND filter. Super durable. This is about the most durable canopy that you're going to get for the 04 Lite. One of my ORT micro V antennas, that's the custom 46 millimeter length with the extended shrink wrap to make it a little more durable. And then the frame is the Mobula 7 V3. It's got very tall ducts, so it's very slow, which is what helps it be really accurate for super tight, flying super tight gaps. And then I switched the motors over to the Beta FPV 1102s because I just wanted absolutely as much power as I could get. And the propellers are the Gemfan 1610s. These are very well balanced and hysterically durable. The only problem is sometimes they kind of fly off. But I have the, on my Etsy store, I have a 1.5 millimeter prop tightener. It's just an M1.7 screw, an Allen M1.7 screw that's exactly the right length. And you run this screw. The first thing you do is you take whatever propeller you want to run and you push it onto the 1.5 millimeter motor shaft. And if you have to push it really hard to get it onto the motor, you're going to be okay. It's not going to come off. If you have to push it too hard, you probably also want to get one of my 1.5 millimeter, 1.49 millimeter drill bits and drill it out, because you don't want to push too hard. You can wreck the laser weld between the motor shaft and the bell. But there's a right amount of force to put these propellers on, and it's hard for me to tell you what that is. I've figured it out over years and years and years of ruining these motors. The closest I can sort of explain to you is that if you're pushing these motors on, you want to just use like two fingers. Just use your index finger and your thumb. If you start doing this and stacking your middle finger on top, you're pushing too hard. If you start to like lift your even if you're just doing it two fingers, if you start to like lift your elbow up and like, you're pushing too hard. You want to have, there needs to be force to put these on for them to stay on and not fly off, but not so much force that you're starting to grunt as a grown-ass man. I'm a pretty skinny bastard. I have little skinny fingers. And so for me, even with, not so man hands, if I start stacking my fingers up, it's an issue. So for you, you probably have stronger hands than me. You can probably put too much force with just your index finger. And so for sure, for you, if you're stacking your fingers or if you're starting to grunt, you're pushing way too hard, you're going to blow up that motor. Typically, these motors get ruined by us, not by flying. By us pushing propellers on too hard and then inevitably removing propellers too hard. If you push it on too hard, you've done 50% of the damage. At some point, you're going to have to get it off. And getting it off, you're going to put all that energy back into it, and you're going to make it even worse. So this is important. But sometimes, if you push the propeller on and it like just not falls on there, but if you really don't have to push hard, you'll kind of know it's going to want to fly off. You're going to fly it around a little bit. One of the propellers is going to come off. That's the ultimate, telltale sign that the amount of force that you put on it was not enough. You can get this little M1.7 screw, or if you have an M1.7 screw, it's the perfect size. Basically, the threads of the screw are going to thread into the plastic, and when those threads push on the plastic, that plastic has to go somewhere, so it's going to sit up. And so like the plastic here, it's going to dig in, and instead of being nice and flat on the inside, it's going to go like that. And so these other two parts that push up, they're going to grab the motor shaft harder. What's cool about the little screws that I have is that they're just the right length where you can like thread it half the way into the prop and then test fit it. And if it's still not tight enough, you thread it the rest of the way in. So you can and like, you're going to run a prop, right? Like this rig I run always on these Gemfan 1610s. And so you just learn. You learn like, hey, this prop needs me to drill it out just a little bit, or this prop needs me to run the prop tightener half the way through it. And then you're going to go fly it a bunch and crash it a bunch. And if you still have your issues with the propellers flying off, now you know you need to put the prop tightener all the way through it, right? And so you're going to figure that out for your specific build. Every single motor has a slightly different thickness motor shaft. Every single propeller has a slightly different diameter slightly different inner diameter. And so I can't perfectly walk you through this. It's different for everyone. You need to pay a little bit of attention when you're doing it, but it's easy. Do your props fly off? Then you need to tighten them. Are you ruining motors? Then you need to drill them out, right? So yeah. There you go. And I did throw a propeller on this after a really hard crash. When you crash really hard, the frame pushes in, that pushes into the propeller, and then that pulls the propeller up on the motor shaft. After every battery you fly, when you pick this thing up to change the battery, you're just going to push down on the propellers. That's your other moment of figuring out if your propellers are too tight or too loose. If you fly a couple of batteries, you pick it up and the propellers have shifted upwards and you push them down and you feel it bottom back out, because you always want to push the propellers all the way down against the bell. Those props are not tight enough. You need to tighten them up a little bit. And so you'll figure it out for each individual rig and propeller and motor combo. Makes sense. So yeah, the intro of the live stream was me ripping this around. I haven't flown this in a while. I've been all like psyched up on these open prop rigs for the last few months. And I've been neglecting what we spent most of the year last year on. It was so nice to fly this around. Oh my God. Like, as much as I love the open prop stuff, being able to just hammer down the street at 30, 40 miles an hour and like throw it up over the big trees and shit. These little guys, these make the world feel so much bigger because they're so much slower. And so like, instead of just bombing down the street, you're like not crawling down the street, but you're flying down the street at like half the speed. And so you do stuff like getting closer to the ground, or like finding the little gutter on the side of your street and dropping down in that gutter like the fucking Star Wars gutter run, to blow up the Death Star. And you know, you duck in and out of the bushes, and it opens up things that you won't be able to fly with the faster, more slidey, more loose kind of builds. And that's just awesome. Like that I just love that element of these guys. Also, this is 2S on BT 3.0. The other thing that I love about this Mobula 7 V3 frame, other than the tall duct slowing it down, the fact that it's just unbelievably durable, and the fact that it's got the perfect battery bay here for the Tiny Whoop 2S 300 mAh batteries or 450 mAh batteries that are BT 3.0, is the back of this frame has this perfect little spot that weirdly the BT 3.0 lead fits in. And so this lead is like held in here perfectly, and then you throw your battery into it. I'll use one of the big ass batteries. I'll use one of the 450s, but I really like this on the 300s, and that's what I was flying. You put the battery in here, and then the only problem with this style of battery, with the lead coming off, is there's no like piece of plastic, right? Like we typically on Tiny Whoops run batteries that have this piece of plastic here, and that piece of plastic, when you crash like this, keeps the battery from ejecting out of the battery bay. This doesn't have that, but what's so amazing about this is with this BT 3.0 connector solidly mounted in the frame. You plug your battery in, and now, yes, the battery can slide forward a little bit in really hard crashes, but then, first of all, it hits the ground, right? Like this 450 would hit the ground and stop, but this stops it. And so the battery doesn't eject all the way out and dingleberry around. After a really hard nose-in crash, you do want to bring this back towards you and slide the battery back. Because if the battery slides forward like this, your CG is going to be wrecked. It's still totally flyable, but you'll notice it. But yeah, this frame for these 2S builds is just so cool. It's just such a nice combination. It's so durable. It's nice and slow. And sometimes you can't get the BT 3.0 unplugged. Ah! I gotta loosen up the pins on this BT 3.0. The XT60, XT30, BT 3.0s, the quad side have either split pins or sometimes it's 4. Sometimes it's 4 splits. And you can just go in there with a pair of thin needle nose pliers and you can compress those if your batteries are hard to get unplugged. BT 3.0 is a split pin like this. All I need to do is take pliers, come in. Well, these are too big, and I can't see anymore because I'm 45 now, and so I need to put a magnified headset on to come in here and just squash these pins down a little bit to make them not so impossibly tight. So yeah, there you go. It was, like I said, I've been neglecting this for far too long. This is just so much fun. The only place where these builds fall short is if you're in like a really windy area. This guy, in anything more than like 10 miles an hour of wind, it's just going to get pushed all over the place. That can be fun. If you got a bunch of wind in this direction, you can surf that wind sideways and do some really cool like Mavic style sliding shots. You can also ride the wind. You know, if the wind is going this way, you ride the wind and go faster than you'll ever go before with this. But then when you have to come back, it sucks. Or if you're trying to shoot a gap going this way, it sucks because you're going to get pushed laterally. It is not very windy in the front of the house here, where there's lots of big tall trees around, and so this is super fun to fly out there. But these guys do have limits. So yeah, this is not a build for everyone, but boy, is this a fun build for a lot of people. What else is happening? We are also going to fly 6 batteries here tonight with this Crazy G473 Ultimate Freestyle Tiny Whoop. We'll talk about that later in the live stream. In the chat, if you want to talk directly to me, type at CiottiFPV. Again, if you want to support me and you like this live stream, would like to see it continue, go to CiottiFPV.com. I've got affiliate links to a ton of different websites. Change your bookmarks to the affiliate links so that you remember, because you have to hit affiliate links over and over and over and over again. Patreon is the best way to support me, but there's also an Etsy store where you can buy all kinds of fun stuff. There's a Teespring store where you can buy some shirts and other apparel to show your love that way. If you do that, for the love of God, take pictures, put them on Instagram, and tag me so that I can then put those into my story, and then people will be like, oh, that's a cool dude, and they'll subscribe to you, and you'll make a new friend, and hey, that's how the internet works now. Dan and FPV says, I was waiting for this live all week. CiottiFPV, good to be here, guys. That's very cool of you to say. Striker says, I find it really funny how within a couple days we both found the limit of the 12 amp FETs, LMFAO. Yeah, Striker is the most recent person to run into the limits of these 12 amp FETs. But for the last like month or so, we've been noticing on a lot of different micros where 5 amp FETs kind of top out. Where 12 amp FETs kind of top out. So this has been cooking for a minute, as the kids say. The kids like to say, let it cook all the time. I think it's cringy as hell, but what do I know? I'm an old man now. Off-Axis says, hey, yo, I'll have that stuff by the end of the week and send to you ASAP. I hope it doesn't take too long. Off-Axis is my Canadian Sherpa when it comes to ordering things from Canadian websites. As many of you know, we have absolutely lost our minds here in hot dog, cheeseburger, unfortunately now fascismville, the land of the surveilled. And shipping anything into the United States is prohibitively expensive in a lot of cases, which is destroying lots of businesses and just, generally making everything worse. And so Off-Axis in the past has offered to, if I need to buy something. So I went on to Rotor Village, a phenomenal FPV store up in Canada that has a lot of stuff that like nobody else has. But for Rotor, what was the order? The order that I was looking to place from Rotor Village was... Oh, I didn't put the total in here. But the order was roughly... I can do math quick. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Roughly $180, $190. After tariffs, after shipping, after all the bullshit, taxes... it was almost $300 to get this order into the U.S., into Atlanta, Georgia, and that's just absurd. And so Off-Axis is very kindly ordering me some of those things, and then he's going to ship them to me, and that should save me an absolute ton of money, and that's amazing. Off-Axis is an amazing dude. You all know him. You all love him. He's a great guy. And so thank you, brother. That is so cool because, again, they've got some stuff that I've not seen anywhere else other than overseas, and I hate waiting 2 to 4 weeks or just never for stuff to show up from God knows where. They actually have some stuff that's not even in stock at the manufacturer's websites. And so, yeah, super cool. Of Off-Axis. He says, he also says, I hosted a meetup today and had a mental breakdown and left super early. Kind of can't fight this depression. Glad you were streaming. Sorry to hear that, dude. Unfortunately, I know absolutely what you're talking about. Even though depression in particular, but a lot of mental illness tells you that you're alone, you are most certainly not. Scream back at it. If you can't talk back to that part of your brain, scream at that part of your brain to just kind of get through it. Yeah, I've got a Facebook group called FPV Therapy with loads of super brave folks that are struggling like us, that have posted their stories in there. That's always really nice to see. And then on my Discord, which is linked from CiottiFPV.com, I also have a text channel with the same name, FPV Therapy, that's in the open to everyone group of text channels. About half of my Discord is for patrons. Half of my Discord, though, is open to anyone. No paywall. Just mash through it, brother. It's going to be all right. That's... I am either 6 or 7 talk therapists deep over the last 25 or so years that I've realized I've had a very hard combination of mental illness issues my entire life. I realized them in my sort of mid-20s and started going to talk therapist after talk therapist after talk therapist. You have to go to a lot of different ones to find the perfect one that's a great fit for you. Also, like, you're gonna reach the end of most talk therapists at some point. There's gonna be a point where they're not really helping you anymore, and that's the time to find another one. Not to stop, but to find another one, because they all have a different approach, and you're gonna change too, right? And it's okay. A therapist's job is to put themselves out of business. Like, their job is for you to not need to come to them anymore. So that's what they're going for. They want you to move on and not have to meet with them anymore. And so, yeah, it's an ongoing kind of thing. For some folks, psychiatrists with medication works really well. You should probably try both. But yeah, do something. That's the big deal here is you got to do something. And that something might be going to either one of these FPV therapy spots and reading and talking to some other folks. That something could be getting exercise, because Jesus Christ, exercise is one of the best, if not the best, things at combating mental health problems. do something, do anything, and then tomorrow do anything, and then the next day do something, and then the next day do anything. You got to do something. Eating well is also a big deal. The link between your gut and your brain is unbelievably strong. And so, yeah, even just eating the world's biggest salad will probably make you feel better the following day. So do something, anything. Cool. Striker says, I'm just kind of sad there isn't a 5-in-1 20 amp. There are quite a few. We're going to talk about them tonight. Although that is kind of asking for the impossible. It would be super sick to have Super Slam 10mm standoffs on 5-in-1 20 amp. Well, I don't know if there's any 5-in-1 20 amps that are set up for analog, which is the only way you'd be able to do a 10mm standoff build. But typically by that point that you're wanting that much power, you're going to have an HD system, which is kind of why you want that much power. You don't really need that much power with analog because it's so much lighter, because it's so much smaller. And so yeah, 12 amp will be totally fine on analog. Even a 2.5 inch analog build, in most cases, you'll be fine. Again, we're going to dive into that in a bit. Dan and FPV says, I also love Mobile 704. I'm rebuilding one right now in original setup. That was actually my very first FPV drone. Very resilient for my lack of skills. Yeah, they're magic. They are absolute magic. McBuca says, in my experience, it's not the prop you want run, but the motor shaft. Yeah, it's really important to remember that each different manufacturer, but in some cases, each different motor, there are motors from within manufacturers that are a little bit different, has a slightly different outer diameter of the motor shaft. They're not all 1.50000 millimeters. There are some that are 1.49. There are some that are 1.48. There are some that are 1.51. And so you've got to spend a little bit of time and effort dialing in your specific rig with your specific motor with your favorite prop. But it's not hard. It's not a hard thing to do. Dannon says, when you change a connector to BT 3.0, do you also convert your batteries or buy brand new? I think it's easier to find 2S XT30 rather than BT 3.0, at least in the UK. It is not super difficult to take an XT30 battery with a balanced lead and convert it to BT 3.0. I have not done that yet because tinywhoop.com sells really good BT 3.0 2S 300 mAh and 450 mAh batteries. And so that's ideal. But to switch them over, to switch an XT3 over, all you're going to be doing is taking the main XT30 leads, and those are the BT 3.0 connector has two pins here and then one odd pin out. Those two pins, those are the main voltage pins, and so those get your main battery leads. And then your balance plug has three wires on it. You're going to get rid of the outside 2 wires, and you're going to solder that middle wire to the odd pin out on the BT 3.0, and that's it. That's that. Make sure those other 2 wires that you get rid of, make sure you chop them and you insulate them really well. What I do is I'll put a little bead of E6000. I'll like chop it flat on the silicone and then put a bead of E6000 over the tip of it, like wrap the E6000 around the wire and then put a nice blob out here on the tip, and then take a piece of shrink wrap and put shrink wrap over it. So you've got 2 layers of protection, the E6000 and the shrink wrap, to make, because that's a live wire when then so you don't need, you can't have those touch anything. So clip them short, do that, and yeah, you'll be good to go. So it's not super hard. All that being said, it's not that much of a weight penalty to run XT30s on this particular build in this specific frame. Yeah, like this is just too good. Having this BT 3.0 in here like this, it's just too good, and it's totally worth it to kind of do this. But if I'm honest, I'm gonna stop doing it on any other builds. I do have this 2-inch build that's got it, and it's fine. This is absolutely fine to have this. It's a little bit lighter weight with this, but like these builds don't need that reduction in weight. It doesn't really do much of anything. To be honest, I'm actually trying to make these builds heavier now because these are unbelievably good itty bitty cinematic rigs. The problem is they're light enough where the wind hits them pretty hard, and weight is one of the best ways to offset that. And so for me personally, I'm starting to make these things heavier instead of lighter. And so if I can run an XT30, which has a little bit of extra weight, and that I don't have to dick around with these weird connectors, that's a win, right? And it gives me a bigger battery selection, and I have to do less work. I don't have to think about swapping connectors over or anything like that. And so, yeah, if there's a specific reason to run BT 3.0, by all means, like that Mobula 7 V3 frame. But XT30 is still a better option. It's just easier across the board. And here's the big thing too, is that BT 3.0 might go away someday, right? It hasn't become like a widely adopted connector. And so at some point, maybe that's 20 years from now, but at some point the BT 3.0 connector is probably going to go away, and then you're stuck. So XT30 is the standard. It's not going anywhere, I wouldn't think. And so you're safer doing XT30. I was hoping that BT 3.0 would get more popular, but it really hasn't, and it's been out for a while, and it's not surprising, but yeah. If there's a specific reason to do BT 3.0, absolutely do it. For me personally, that is just this frame. Just the fact that it fits so perfectly in frame and fixes the issue of the battery ejecting out of the front of these things, that is a big deal, and that is a beautiful reason to run it. But anywhere else, yeah. And I've done other things with this build to keep the batteries from ejecting out the front. This gap here in between is like the perfect width for a piece of tape, the cloth tape that I have. You guys know the cloth tape that Nick Burns talks about all the time, or just any tape, to be honest. And so all of the 2S 300 mAh batteries that I run on this have a wrap of tape perfectly centered, and then when I jam them in here, that tape sits perfectly in between here, and that really helps the battery stay centered. But on a, we can go 30-40 miles an hour at full tilt on these things, and when you smack into something, that is an unreasonable amount of energy, and it will push that battery forward regardless of what you've done. So yeah, having that battery lead in the back is amazing. Capital C says, I also dusted off my 04 Mobula 7 this week. That's so weird. I'm working in a huge open air empty dairy barn. That's perfect for in there. Having a blast flying through it on my lunch break. Yeah, that is perfect for that, man. That's awesome. Uriel says, it's a global happening. There's no minister or so I would drink a coffee with. Fair enough. Phil Bradley says, I crashed my Mobula 8 the other day. Now when I go to arm, it says it's armed, but the props don't spin. Do you think it's trashed? If not, any suggestions to diagnose the problem? Cheers. Great question, Phil. First and foremost, no matter how hard you hit something, the ones and zeros are safe. The ones and zeros almost never go flying out when we hit stuff. Every once in a while, on a couple of AIOs, if the voltage drops low enough, unbelievably, some ones and zeros can escape, and you'll need to reinstall Betaflight. It's very, very rare. And typically that doesn't happen on crashes, right? It happens when you run a battery down below 3 volts per cell. Technically on a crash, God knows what can happen, right? The batteries can, when you hit something really hard, the PID loop freaks out, and that could sag the battery really low. And so 1 in a million, reinstalling Betaflight will fix the problem. You might as well, because your AIO is blown up. When you hit something really hard and then the rig no longer works, physical damage, right? The number one thing for troubleshooting in FPV is to just stop, take a step back, and go, when did this problem start? If the problem started when you hammered it into a metal pole at full throttle, you broke something, and you're going to need to replace something, rather than go into ESC settings or Betaflight or any of that kind of stuff. And so you've done the right thing already. You asked this question perfectly. You told me that you slammed it into something, and you said, is it trashed? So you already know. You already know that it is, right? But that's great, man. Like most people in your shoes, the comment would be, my quad won't arm. Why? I don't fucking know. Give me less information. Jesus. And so, yeah, you're doing awesome already. You have probably been hanging around here for a while. Long form content is where you actually learn things, my friends. Go figure. You don't learn shit from shorts. And so Phil's been around. He knows what's going on. He just wants confirmation, and I'm glad, because it's a great question. It gives me a chance to talk about this. Hopefully somebody new is here and you just learned a lot. I know this right now, this seems super basic, but you would not believe how many people can't come to grips with this. And they waste lots of people's time on Reddit and Facebook groups where all the answers are pretty much bad anyway. Not all, but more than 50%. And so, yeah. So yeah, it's blown up, brother. Like when you slam into something, check the basic stuff. Make sure there's not like a motor that is shorted or something like that. But like that shit just doesn't really happen. If it won't arm, it has been grenaded. You might as well go into the CLI and type diff, DIFF space ALL, diff all. Copy that into your clipboard, reinstall Betaflight, paste that back into the CLI. Now you have a fresh Betaflight with all those settings, all those different things, different from the stock Betaflight setup. That's the quickest way to reinstall Betaflight and not have to go through each individual tab and reset everything up. You might as well do that because it's blown up anyway. But you're going to do that and it's not going to change anything. Yeah, we ask for too much from these. The fact that these things fly at all is a miracle. For us to be just hammering them into solid objects, it's a miracle that they survive one hard hit. And so, yeah, that's just a part of the game. You got to play to play. This is how you get good. The harder you crash, the more often you crash, the more you're pushing your limits. Don't push your limits. Like, if your limits are here, 1 to 10, don't fly at a 15. You don't learn anything at a 15. Fly at like an 11. Like, push yourself a little bit beyond your limits, but not like way beyond. When you're pushing yourself way beyond your limits, you don't learn anything. You're just throwing it at a gap and hoping. And you don't really learn hardly anything when you do that. Have some control and push yourself a little bit. That's the sweet spot where you get a lot better. But if you fly at 5/10 all the time, you're going to plateau and you're not going to get better. You have to push to 9 or 10 or 11/10 to get better. 9/10 you're going to get better pretty quick. 10 a little bit quicker. 11 a little bit quicker. 12, 13 it's going to start to fall off. Luca says, do you think it's worth building the 04 Whoop, which you have shown on some earlier streams with the Beta FPV AIO, or is the Mobula 8 04 suitable to use for filming and some light freestyle? So 04 Lite, it's tough to consider that a camera system for filming because it's such a small sensor and the dynamic range is so kind of shallow. I have had a number of my shots taken onto live broadcasts viewed by tens of thousands of people from 04 Lite camera systems on like warm-up races and stuff like that. So the quality is like shockingly good, but it's nothing like an 04 Pro. And so I just want to get that out of the way because you use the word filming. Is it worth building an 04 Whoop is the question. It's twice as expensive as an analog Whoop, no matter how you cut it, because of the camera system VTX. And so, and you're not going to have any more fun flying it. You're going to have better quality flight footage. You're actually going to have less fun flying it because it's more expensive, so you're not going to fly it as hard, and there's more latency. And so your connection with the drone is going to be broken a little bit from that extra latency. And so analog is always going to be king for having fun, it being cheap, quiet, great performance, all that jazz. If having good quality flight footage at the end of your flying matters to you, or if you want to see where you're going, because a lot of times with analog it's hard to see where you're going, then yes, it's worth it to have an 04 setup. But you're not necessarily going to have any more fun with the 04 rigs. It's not necessarily more fun being able to see where you're going. I know that sounds kind of crazy, but it's the truth. Analog is good enough, and you can see where you're going most of the time. And so analog is still kind of king in terms of most people's FPV experience, right? Most people, the flight footage doesn't matter. Nobody cares. Nobody watches it. And that's a good thing. It lets you just have fun, which is what this should probably be about for most people. Turning it into something more than that, it's, it might be fun for you. Might not. Adds pressure, adds a lot of cost, adds latency. For some of us, it adds fun. But yeah, that's how you make that decision, in my opinion. Portal Zen says, got a suggestion for goggle upgrade, mainly analog drones at the moment, but was looking at walk snail. For analog, infinite budget, HD0 goggles V1 or V2. They're both awesome. For budget, used Fat Sharks. Fat Shark HD3, HDO, HDO2 used. That is like that is the absolute best way of doing it on a budget. You're going to pay, let's say, $200 for the goggles. You're going to use them. They're going to run forever because Fat Shark makes an incredible product. And then when you're done with them, or when you want to go to a better goggle like the HD Zeros, you're going to sell them for $200. So it's, yeah, the pricing of Fat Shark HD3, HDO, HDO2 has completely bottomed out. You will buy them and sell them for the same amount. So you can have free, really good goggles. You just got to have that initial outlay, right? I don't really know of any of the other more inexpensive goggles, and I can't really recommend them. Like yeah, sure. I started on like an $80 or $60 set of Eachine VR 007 Pro, I believe they were. And they got the job done, but they were nowhere near as good as a set of Fat Sharks. They made my eyes have to strain like crazy. And when I went to sell them, I got like no money for them because they're garbage and nobody wants them, right? And so like in the time that I owned those goggles, I lost a bunch of money. If I just came up with more money on the front end, I could have bought Fat Sharks and then sold them for what I paid for them. And so, yeah, spending $150 or $200 on a set of used Fat Sharks is the way to go. I know that kind of sucks if you're budget limited. Believe me, I get that. My first 2 full years in FPV, I was unemployed when I first moved to Charleston. And so, yeah, believe me, I get that. But, and, you know, for me, it was like, well, I don't know if I'm going to enjoy this. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this. And so I want to spend as little money as possible. I get it. I totally get it. But look, it's fucking flying. You're gonna like it. You're gonna have a good time here. And so, yeah, wait a little bit longer. Keep flying in the simulator. And then buy a set of used Fat Sharks is my main recommendation, with a good module, a rapid fire module or a TBS Fusion or a Speedy B module. The module matters. And good antennas as well. True RC singularity antennas are almost the way to go across the board. Oh wait, looks like YouTube scrolled me to the bottom of the chat and I didn't even realize it. Scrolling back up to find my place as usual. Striker says, in most cases it's fine, but if you want big power and you fly hard freestyle, I still wouldn't go for 2.5-inch analog 12 amp FETs on 1202.5 11,500. 1202.5 seems to be okay. It's going to depend on if they're the big 12 amp FETs or the small 12 amp FETs, but again, we're going to dive into that in a minute. Let me just get caught up on chat. Phil Bradley says, sound advice, good shout to reinstall Betaflight. Many thanks. You're welcome. Sorry that you broke your AIO. But yeah, again, you might as well reinstall Betaflight before you threw it in the river. Dan and FPV says, any suggestions on which camera to choose for analog whoop built on 2G4 AIO? I finally snagged it, so I can stop procrastinating building a new workhorse whoop for indoor bashing. Beta FPV CO3 for the best quality. Runcam Nano 3, which you can get on Get FPV as like the Tiny Hawk camera. It's like the Runcam Nano 3 Tiny Hawk Emax camera. For durability, that camera fits, and you're gonna have to pair it with the old school Mobula 6 upside down ball sack canopy. Look at that ball sack, bro. Look at it. That's the wrong way. This is my favorite combination for durability. This is pretty much the only camera that fits really well in here, and really durably in here. Those are the two big camera options. CO3 looks the best, hands down. Runcam Nano 3 is the best total package for durability and as lightweight as you can. This is a heavy canopy, but the Runcam Nano 3 is a super lightweight camera. But it doesn't look anywhere near as good as the CO3. So yeah, there you go. And then CO3, you're gonna have to figure out a canopy. The Beta FPV Air V2 canopy is actually really, really good. Or you can do a 3D printed canopy like the Brain. This is my favorite. I have these for sale on my Etsy store, or you can just grab them from Thingiverse and print one out. They're awesome. Levster says, hey everybody, hey dude, love to see you live again. Thank you, brother. Uriel says, is it easy to change view to PC monitor for indoor use? What? Is it easy to change view to PC monitor for indoor use? To fly through? No. Don't fly through a monitor. There's going to be too much latency introduced, and yeah, goggles are king. I hope that answers your question. Hey, I'm caught up on chat. Awesome. So let's talk about amp limits on flight controllers, AIOs, ESCs. The TLDR here is 5 amp FETs. So we're talking Happy Model 2G4 AIO, the most durable AIO we've ever seen for tiny whoops, the gold standard. You can buy them from Weebleed. Yes, they're a little expensive, but they're going to last 2 or 3 or 4 times longer than any other AIO out there. And so in the grand scheme of things, it is a cheap AIO because you're going to get so many more batteries out of it. All these AIOs are going to break. Let's get that out of the way too. All of these AIOs are going to blow up. Having your ESC, your flight controller, your VTX, your receiver all in one board is a horrible idea. It is stupid, it is dumb, but we have to do it to get the weight down and the size down. And so AIOs are going to break eventually no matter what. There is no such thing as a truly durable AIO, but the 2G4 is as close as we've ever gotten to it. And it's way better than everything else out there. So 5 amp FETs, 2G4. I don't really know if you need to, like, just, that's it. That's the one. There are no other AIOs at this point that have 5 amp FETs that are really worth it to buy. So that's it. 5 amp FETs, 2G4, super durable, 5 amps per channel, 20 amps total. Basically what that means is 0702 or 0802 motors. Fuck the 802s, 702s is what you want. 1.2 inch propeller, tiny whoop, 65 millimeters motor to motor. This is really the only scenario where a 5 amp FET makes any sense. And you can absolutely max those 5 amp FETs out. For some weird reason, they won't blow up. They will just limit the amount of power. I wish that the rest of ESCs and FPV were like that, but they are not. They blow up if you ask too much from them. But yeah, for some weird reason, the 5 amp FETs on the 2G4 almost never blow up from you asking too much power from them. They just sort of like self-limit and keep on going. And so there is a point with the really, really, really powerful motors that you can max a 5 amp FET out and not get the full amount of power that you would get from a 12 amp FET. That being said, it's like this has, I think this has 5 amp FETs. So this is the Crazy G473. I don't recommend it. It's direct solder and it's just not as good as the 2G4. But I believe this also has 5 amp FETs. This is on Weebleed 0702 40,000 kV motors on HQ 1.2 by 0.9 by 3 propellers. I have a pretty much identical build on the 2G4, and these are my favorite builds. These are my absolute favorite tiny whoops. The 2G4 is hysterically durable. They're easy to tune. They don't have black box, so you can't waste a bunch of time fucking around with black box. You just throw a tune in there, take the master multiplier, move it up as high as you can until it starts acting weird, and then back it off a little bit. The tuning is easy. It mounts solid. It's strong. And then you just fly. And that's what we're here for, is to just fly, right? It's got great power, super durable, absolute blast. And so that is like the meta for me. If you want more power than that, you've got to go to a 12 amp FET. Butterfly FPV recently tested 1102. I believe it was 1102 22,000 kV, big power motors, much bigger power than 702s, on 12 amp FETs. There are two different styles of 12 amp FETs. Smaller FETs and bigger FETs. Go figure, the bigger FETs work better. One of the things that FETs do is when they're working is get hot, and so if it's bigger, it's going to be a bigger heat sink. So that's, I'm sure that has a lot to do with it. But with really big power motors like that, 12 amp FETs are absolutely essential. And then you want to try, in a second we're going to talk about like the big FETs versus the small FETs. But even on these little 702s, like, so these 702 40,000 kVs from Weebleed, you'll probably get a few extra grams of thrust from going from a 5 amp FET to a 12 amp FET. But there are no AIOs that are as durable as the 2G4. And so the best combination, in my experience, is the 2G4, and you sacrifice a couple grams of thrust, and you just don't think about it, and you just fly and you enjoy yourself. But if you want to go to an even... And these motors are actually very efficient, which is probably why you're not leaving much performance on the table. There are now some 702s that are way higher, not way higher power, but significantly higher power than these. The Beta FPV Champion Edition 36,000, Weebleed motors, Tiny Whoop motors, Happy Model motors, the KV, they measure KV differently than everybody else. And so a 40,000 KV Weebleed motor makes a lot less power than a Beta FPV 0702 36,000 KV. So yeah, the Beta FPV 36s are at the moment the highest power motors. There are a couple of RC and Power 0702s. There's like a 31,666 or some weird number kV. There's a 29,000 kV. Those both of those make horrendous amounts of power. The Newbie Drone Hummingbird 30,000 kV 0702s make a ton of power. For all of those motors, if you want to take advantage of that crazy amount of power that they make, which actually is too much for flying indoors in my opinion, you're going to need a 12 amp AIO. At the moment, the 12 amp AIO to have for tiny whoops is the Beta FPV, the new Beta FPV Matrix, which does not have that front mounting hole. So like if we just go to Beta FPV's website and we go to FPV gear and we go to, we go to parts and spares and we go to 1S brushless flight controller. It's this guy right here, Matrix 1S. This is the newest version of their 5-in-1 AIO. And it has the bigger FETs. And so even if you end up using this on a bigger build, 1.6 inch prop with like 1002s or 1102s, this is going to be the AIO to run. So if you want more than 5 amp, this is the one. This is significantly less durable than the 2G4, but it seems to be as durable as all the other AIOs that there are. The only other AIO that I'm going to recommend is the Happy Model X12, but the Happy Model X12 has some problems that are kind of annoying. It's an oversized AIO, and so it doesn't fit in all the frames. You're going to have to put this into a Happy Model Mobula 7 V3 or V4 frame. The V4 frame is great, and so it's totally fine in there, but that Beta FPV AIO fits in everything, and it has black box. This doesn't have black box. This does have 12 amp FETs. I think they are the smaller FETs, but yeah, this is a totally no, those are the bigger FETs actually. This is a totally acceptable choice, but to be really honest, the Matrix, it's got black box. It's a lot lighter. It's standard sized. Just get this. This doesn't seem to be any... This might be a little bit less durable than the X12, but there are so many benefits to this that, yeah, just get this. And this is cheap. This is only $55, which really helps with the fact that, yeah, it's going to blow up at some point. This is all the 1S world. And so now we're done talking about 1S. We're going to dive into 2S. And so once we go to 2S, there are no 5 amp AIOs. They're all either 12 amps or 20 amps. And so now 12 amp is going to cover you on 1.6 inch propeller builds all the way up to 2 inch builds. Open prop, tiny whoop, doesn't matter. It's going to cover you on motor sizes from like 1002, 1102 into 1003, into 1103, up to 1202 and a half. And that's it. 1202 and a half is the line. You do not want to go to a 1203 unless it is a low kV, low power 1203. Or a 1303 or anything bigger than 1202 and a half. And to be honest, 1202 and a half is kind of pushing it anyway. 1202 and a half motors are the target for these open prop builds because the 12 millimeter wide stator is big enough for the motor manufacturers to thicken up the motor shaft below the bell to 2 millimeters. And so for an open prop 2 inch build, you want to run a 1202 and a half for the durability. Any of these 11 or 10 motors, 1003, 1103, you're going to blow motors up all the time if you crash. You should be crashing. It's part of the game. You're going to get better the more you crash, because when you crash, you're pushing your limits, and that's where you get better. And so, yeah, 1202 and a half is where you want to be on open prop 2 inch builds. And luckily, you can get away with it with most of these 12 amp AIOs. One of my favorite resources at the moment for which AIO is the right, well, showing the most current best selections for AIO. And for the record, this is going to get stale here. I do not have a proper website because it is impossible to keep up. It's not impossible, but it is infinitely time consuming to keep up with the constantly changing electronics in FPV. Every 6 months to a year, everything gets discontinued and a whole bunch of new shit comes out with like one new thing added that most people don't care about, because that's what helps these manufacturers sell more shit. And so at the moment, what I do is I go to Google and I search for Caillou Mini, and that pulls up the Caillou Mini 2.5-inch page. And this starter pack page here has loads of really good information. Some of this information I do not agree with, mainly the motor options, because this 1103, this 1103, this 1103, and this 1104 all have 1.5 millimeter motor shafts below the bell, which you are going to bend all the time. So don't follow this motor selection. There's also some propellers in here that aren't very well balanced, like these bi-blades and like these Avan Rushes. These Gemfan Hurricanes are good, but the HQ 2.5 by 1.9 by 3, I believe they are even better than these. And so there's some stuff in here. These batteries are really good as well. I like both of these batteries, but most of us are actually running a 450 mAh battery. So this is a page that's been up for a long time. It's starting to get a little bit stale with some of the things that we've learned with this style of build. But this AIO selection is, these AIO options are really, really, really good. And so if you're going to run analog, these are the best of the analog options here. For me, I mainly look at these 3-in-1 HD AIOs. And that's what we're going to kind of talk about here, because that's where things get interesting and a little bit hairy, and you can kind of blow up AIOs more often than you want to. And if you blow an AIO up while you're flying, a $300+ build, $300+ because it has a fancy 04 camera system in it, that sucks bad. And so the limits that I've kind of figured out here, the 12 amp limit we just talked about, if you want to go up to a big power 2.5-inch build like the Caillou Mini, you're going to start blowing up 12 amp FETs. And the line is 1202. It seems to be 1202.5, but it's hard because the KV also matters. These are T-motor 1203, so they're above the stator size limit, but they're only 7,000 kV. And so once the KV comes down, the motor asks and pulls less current from the FETs, from the ESC. And so these motors would probably run all day and be totally fine. I ran a bunch of batteries through these and they were completely fine. With these motors, I paired them with a more pitchy 2.5-inch propeller. And they made some of the power back, but still didn't have enough power. I think there's an 8,000 kV 1203, which would be a little bit better. But the problem there is that when you go up to a higher pitch propeller, the propeller gets heavier, and that hurts your response time, how quickly the motor and prop combo can accelerate and decelerate. And that hurts prop wash performance, that hurts performance in the wind. And so it's a better bet to run a lower pitch, lighter weight propeller and just spin the shit out of it, usually. Higher KV, higher RPM. You don't sacrifice response time, and you still get the power because of the extra RPM. And so on the Caillou Mini, which is now pulled apart because the AIO blew up, I moved it from the 1203 7000s to the RC and Power 1203 11500. 11,500 motors, and on the third battery it cooked the AIO. On the the third battery it cooked the AIO. And so that's the limit. And we've seen this with other folks. Most recently, Stryker actually blew up a Happy Model X12 12 amp AIO on a similar kind of setup. The KV is high. 11,500 KV on 2S with a 2.5 inch propeller is mega. I was pairing that with the lowest pitch, well-balanced 2.5 inch propeller that there is, which is the Gemfan 2512. If you want to see what that performance looks like, here you go. I'll let a couple of these flight files run, which I continue to talk while I continue to talk about this. So this is, why is this the first file? Hold on. But the first file was me flying at Patrick's, wasn't it? Here's flying at Patrick's. Here's flying at home again. Here's where it blew up. I think I grabbed the wrong file here. Hold on. We can tell by the amount of amps that it pulls. No, 42 amps. No, that's it. So this is pulling on a freshly charged battery and on a not perfectly dialed in amp meter, but it's somewhat dialed in. This is pulling roughly 42 amps. A 12 amp AIO should be able to handle that because it's 12 amps per channel. 12, 24, 36, 48, right? It should be able to handle 48 amps, but life's imperfect. This current sensor is not perfectly dialed in. Yours probably isn't either, and so you can't judge by that. This could be pulling 60 amps for all I know. The long and short of it is that a 12 amp AIO is not necessarily going to be able to withstand 48 amps over and over and over and over again. Once or twice, absolutely. But you always want to have a good chunk of extra amp rating built into your ESC FETs versus what your propeller, motor, battery combo are going to be able to produce. All three of those things matter. A bigger battery is going to sag less, and it is going to hit everything harder. A bigger motor, same deal. A higher KV motor, same deal. A more pitchy propeller, same deal. When you do these things that make more thrust, they pull more amps. All right? And so when you change one of those things, it affects it. So this was asking too much. And also, like, I'm doing testing, so I'm doing these big full throttle punches. You can see the battery is sagging all the way down to 3. Well, you can't because my big dumb face is in the way, but the battery is sagging all the way down to 3.19 volts. It's a fully charged battery. That is another sign that you've got a mismatch in your drivetrain. This battery is too small for this high of a KV, this big of a motor, and this pitchy of a propeller. This is not that pitchy of a propeller, but it's still it's a part of the equation here. But yeah, you're about to see the 3 batteries and then puff of smoke that killed this JHE MCU AIO. This combo is asking too much. If I want this amount of power, which I do, I need 20 amp FETs, and there are a couple of AIOs that have that. And so if you want to stay 12 amp and 2S, this is too much. 1203, 11,500 KV, 2512 propellers, 2S 450 mAh battery on an all-up weight. All-up weight doesn't matter as much, but it does matter. This was like 90-something grams, high 90s of grams, almost 100 grams all-up weight. This is too much for this particular AIO. This is probably the same FET as most of these run, but maybe not. There are a couple different options in FETs, and so maybe like the Flywoo 12 amp AIO would have been able to put up with this, but again, We are running it to its absolute ragged edge, and that is a terrible thing to do when you've got $120+ camera and VTX on there, you know, 50, 60 bucks in motors, $50 to $80 in AIO. You know, the frame's not free, props aren't free, right? So for this level of power that you're looking at here, we need to go to 20 amps. There's a chance that 3S would be able to survive here, because as you go up in voltage, the amps come down, and that becomes easier on the FETs. But this is not an AIO that'll accept 3S. Most of the AIOs that will accept 3S are 20 amp. And so you're going to get the 20 amp FETs if you go to 3S anyway, which is a good thing. So here's the second battery on these motors. And again, this was not a brand new AIO, but it was pretty new. I had tested this on 1202.5s and then low KV 1203s, put loads of batteries through them, and it was totally fine. And then 3 batteries into this motor setup, and it cooked. And I have seen similarly powered setups to this blow up 12 amp AIOs over the last 2 months. And so that's why I'm pretty confident to, you know, give you some of these limits and guardrails to stay within, so that you don't, you know, lose a $300+ awesome little rig that you put a ton of time into building. And so 20 amp, well, I got to go on the, look at that reaction. I do want to let this play so that you can get a feel for this flight performance. So like what 12 amp, what AIOs are the good ones for 12 amp FETs? It's mainly the ones here at this Caillou mini page. The JHE MCU. Well, this is kind of interesting here. This this GHF 435 AIO, this is actually a 2S to 4S 20 amp AIO. And so this is, I have a couple of these on the way from China, actually, because I'm looking forward to testing this. The AIO that I just blew up, though, until I went over the limit, it was fine. Once I went over the limit, it was not, and that's what you're going to watch here. So if you keep this under the limit, this is the JHE MCU G474 ELRS. It was totally fine for a bunch of batteries. I think it'd be better off to go with the Flywoo version, but it might be okay. It might be okay. There's also this GEP-RC Taker F411 12 amp. This is another one that seems to be pretty good. I would not do this Happy model here. And then this is the Flywoo Goku F405 HD. This is the one that I would really recommend. It's a little bit more expensive, but it's really, really, really good. I think it's worth the extra couple bucks, and I trust Flywoo's Goku line more than any of the rest of these. You're putting $120+ camera system up in the air. Don't go 20 bucks less on the AIO and chance it. So that right there is what killed this AIO. The very next battery that I ran on it, I armed it, and you can see a little bit of smoke on the left there, and you can see the RX loss, and that was the FET in the thumbnail of this video blowing up. And so that was the death of this 12 amp AIO. I was asking too much. This is my fault. I did this. We are asking for more and more power from these things. I am asking for more and more power from these things, because I am increasing the weight so that I can fly these things in a cinematic way in the wind, at the beach, in downtown areas, because nobody knows you're flying. Nobody cares that you're flying. It's totally safe, and it's magic. Not being nervous, like the whole experience of flying these things around out in the world is just such a blast. And adding weight to them is really, really helpful to get them to handle the wind that you get out in the real world a lot better. So where do we go from here? We go to 20 amp AIOs. And so this JHE MCU GHF 435 is a really good option, and it is actually in stock in a couple of places. There's also a Gep RC 20 amp, and it's this guy here, the Gep RC Taker F405 20 amp 2 to 4S AIO. Off Axis is very kindly ordering me one of these from Rotor Village, and he's going to send it to me. So that's super awesome. For the record, I'm paying Off Axis, but he's doing a whole bunch of legwork, and which is totally appreciated. Some of you lunatics will buy me stuff and just send it to me, which is absolutely amazing. But just to be totally clear, Off Axis is not buy. I'm asking him to buy me like $200+ worth of stuff. He's not just doing that out of the kindness of his heart. But it is super kind of him to do everything that he is doing. I appreciate his time just as much. So, yeah, this is another potentially really good option. There is a Flywoo option. Where the hell is it? There is a Flywoo option. The Flywoo Goku F405 HD 3 to 4S, not 2 to 4S, which is kind of annoying, but even more annoying is that the damn thing's not in stock anywhere. I cannot find this Flywoo Goku F405 3 to 4S 20 amp in stock anywhere, which sucks because I really like the Flywoo stuff and I would really like to test this. But it's great that the Gep RC exists and is in stock. It's great that the JHE MCU exists and is in stock. I got the JHE MCU from eBay of all places. It is coming from overseas, so it is going to take a while. Where the hell is it? Oh, well, it's listed out here. So if you just grab this, and then if I just do a Google search for the name of it, you can get it on Amazon. If you get it from Amazon, it is a little bit more expensive. Make sure that you use my Amazon affiliate link if you don't mind. It doesn't cost you anything. You might as well. So you can get this, which is awesome. And it is 2 to 4S, which is awesome because you can have your 2S 20 amp, or you can bump up to 3S someday, maybe, as I plan to, but you don't have to. But there is a guy on eBay selling these for a little bit less. Is this them? Oh, so there's this one for $75, which is in Texas. So less than Amazon. You're not supporting a corporation run by a horrible human being in Amazon. And so, yeah, somebody buy this. I really almost bought this the other day. But if you want to save another couple dollars, I think this other guy on eBay still has some in stock. So this is where I got him from. Yeah, he's got 6 available still. I actually bought 2 of the damn things because they were cheaper. It's $62.50 for 2 of them. But it's going to take a while to get here because they are in Shenzhen. So yeah, this is going to take a while to get to me, but it's okay. I wanted to save that money, and I would like to have 2 of them. JHE MCU makes really good stuff. This AIO blew up because I asked for way too much from it. The batteries that I flew on this with this setup, it was crazy how much power it had. It's the amount of power that I want, but it's a ridiculous amount of power. To the point where it's the hover point was a little bit lower than where I typically like it to be, and it was a little bit difficult to maintain altitude. I can easily fix that with Throttle Expo. I was planning on fixing it with Throttle Expo, but it didn't last long enough for me to before it blew up. And so it is tameable. You know, once I get the 20 amp set up with it, I'm going to have to do that stuff. And then I'm going to go 3S and we'll, yeah, kind of dial in on that. But when I get the 20 amp AIO, it's just going right in here, and we're going to see what it's like on these motors, because if you want to stay 2S, yeah, away you go. The problem is with this level of power on 2S, it sags the batteries really hard. And so, like, minimum for a 2S battery that can handle this combo, 1203, 11,500 kV, Gemfan 2512 propellers, roughly 100-gram all-up weight, it's going to push you up slightly over 100 grams all-up weight, but you're going to want a 2S 550 or bigger battery. Unfortunately, on the Caillou Mini, that battery won't fit on the battery bay. And so this guy is going to go 3S, but I do at least want to test it and get a couple more batteries out of this motor prop voltage combination. Although it is only going to be a couple of batteries because I've already noticed that this combo is starting to puff my 2S 450 mAh batteries. So I need to replace those batteries because once they get puffed, the internal resistance goes to hell. But yeah, that's another discussion for another day. That is why I'm going 3S, because at the amount of power that I'm looking for the size of the capacitor, the size of the battery that this frame can hold, it's a mismatch, right? You can't put a big enough battery to not sag. The solution to that mismatch is to go up to a higher voltage, which is going to pull the amps down and helps with battery sag. Hopefully, there's a chance that that the higher voltage will start blowing up the AIO. Probably not, though, because I'm not going to max this AIO out. That's kind of another thing here, is that if you have a 1 to 2S AIO and you run it on 2S, you're pushing it to its limit. I'm going to set this thing up with a 2 to 4S or a 3 to 4S AIO, and I'm going to run it on 3S. We're not pushing it to its limit on the voltage itself. If you push a flight controller or an ESC to its limit on both the voltage and the amps, it's going to blow up. Like, that's just the way that FPV works. We demand that this stuff be cheap because we bash it into walls and we lose it in rivers. And so the specs that they put on it, the technical specs, right, to the components, you're never going to get there because there's 80,000 goddamn components on these AIOs all right next to each other, all getting each other hot and trying to melt each other's solder and blow each other up. Cool. So you got to keep something within the limits, right? Either the amps or the voltage. And so running this guy on 3S with AIOs that are able to take up to 4S, it should be absolutely fine. Run, as close to forever as possible. So there you go. There are your 20 amp AIO options. Technically 3 options, but for the life of me, I can't find that damn Flywoo in stock anywhere, which really kind of sucks because it's probably awesome. Not this one. It's not the Goku F405. It's the I keep losing it. Here it is. It is Goku F405, but then it's 3 to 4S 20 amp. The one on the Caillou Mini website here, this is the 12 amp version. And so you're not going to want to put more than a 1202.5 motor pair. You're not going to want to pair more than that size motor up with this guy. Does that all make sense? That's a lot, friends. I just threw a lot at you. If you didn't catch all of it, give it a couple days and rewatch, because you won't believe how much more you sort of osmosis from watching stuff a second and or a third time. And or when you're ready to buy, come back and rewatch this. Hopefully the thumbnail of the blown up FET is easy enough to find in the 1,000+ live streams that I've done since I started doing this as a full-time gig 5-ish years ago. Let me try to get caught up on chat here. Oh my god, Gusto FPV is in the chat. I haven't seen you in a while, brother. Hopefully you're doing well. Why are there flies in here? Get out of here. Yeah, let me get caught up on chat here, because maybe there's some questions about everything that I just threw at you. Portal's End with a $5 super chat. He says, analog goggle suggestion in our current market, currently looking at HD0 goggles 2 for price ceiling. Any suggestions? Right before I went on this big long rant, somebody asked the same question, and I gave sort of my answer. The long and short is used Fat Sharks are the best deal. HD3, HDO, HDO2, or the HD0 goggles 1 or goggles 2. So you're already looking at the expensive option. The cheap option that makes the most sense is Fat Sharks with a good module, rapid fire TBS Fusion, Speedy B. Those 3 modules are fantastic. More often than not, though, when you buy a used set of Fat Sharks, they're going to come with one of those 3 modules. Uriel says, I got a set for my tablet. I'm going to try on monitor. I'll keep you updated. I think he's talking about flying through a tablet. That's fun. Dannon says, I actually bought this Mobula 6 canopy as well. There you go. I like the fact that it makes the whole build more durable, but I also really like the quality of the CO3. Yep. Doing both. Two different camera and canopy setups is going to cost you like $50 total. So doing both. Dannon says, oh, by the way, do you have any experience / opinions on Hummingbird Mini Whoop? I guess they released a newer version recently. My main issue with the newbie drone whoops is the OSD flickering in and out, turning off randomly, turning back on randomly. It kind of drives me crazy, and it keeps me away from their setups. The Hummingbird Race is like infinitely lightweight, and so if you're looking for the craziest flying experience, there's nothing like it. It's not going to be as durable as something with plugs, but boy, is it crazy. It's a bit much for flying indoor, especially freestyle. It's mainly for like hardcore race, but it is a wild amount of power to weight ratio. So yeah, I like the newbie drone stuff, but their cameras are not as good as the CO3. Their stuff is not as durable as the Happy Model-ish builds. 2G4 with Mobula 6 canopy, Runcam Nano 3. And then the Beta FPV Air, the new Beta FPV Air stuff is kind of better in most ways. The Hummingbird Race is how you get absolute banana pants performance. The Beta FPV Air V2 stuff is how you get kind of the best of all worlds. For ultimate durability, it's the Happy Model 2G4 with the... There's a bunch of different frames that'll work. My favorite is the Cockroach 65 V3. But yeah, there you go. Portal Zen, thank you for the support. Wait. Gusto says, just pulled the trigger on a brand new pair of analog Orca Pilot goggles. If you can find Orcas, boy, are they nice. But they're very expensive and they're very hard to find. Plus, rapid fire module. I wanted HD0, but IPD only went to 72. My IPD is 74, and I couldn't find any goggles. Woo! We dropped $1,000 just because of my IPD of 74. That is annoying as hell that you had to do that. But I mean, you'll be able to sell them for a lot, and they are. You can argue that the Orca goggles are the best. You could also argue that the HD Zeros are the best. I think the Orcas are a better, more comfortable actual goggle, but then the HD Zeros support HD Zero, which for some people is great. For me, it doesn't matter at all. The HD Zero goggles have a better DVR. They have a DVR that de-interlaces the video, which gives you slightly better quality. So Orca for everything else, HD Zero goggles for slightly better DVR and HD Zero support. Hope you've been doing well, Gusto. Hope you've been lurking in the background. Off Axis says, try 145 Canadian for the parts. That's like $100 US or something considered a gift. What do you mean, Off Axis? Is 145 the total? I sent you another message because I noticed that they had the Gep RC Taker 20 amp AIO in stock. It is 145. You got a sponsorship discount? Look at you go, dude! Awesome. That's a pretty nice little discount there. But you just said consider it a gift. Is that order on you? If so, that is incredibly generous. If not, it's totally cool. But you said consider it a gift. I think that might be what that means, dude. Very, very cool. Even if that's not what you meant, I absolutely love that you're willing to do the legwork to order this shit and then ship it to me. So thank you regardless. WKFPD says, were you using a capacitor on the one that blew up? On this guy, no. There is really no good spot to put a capacitor in these builds. This is just an analog build, so there is some space up here. Once you put an HD board up on top here, there's really no good spot for a capacitor on these things to be able to get it close enough to the battery leads and keep it protected and keep it from vibrating and breaking. And so, yeah, I don't run capacitors on these. There's a chance that the capacitor could have prevented it from blowing up. Capacitors, they never hurt, but they don't necessarily help. If there's enough onboard itty bitty capacitors, and how many capacitors, and is like if there's enough onboard capacitance, which is the total amount of UF from all the onboard capacitors, then you really don't need the external capacitor. This did blow up in a crash, and so like if you just go out and you go full throttle and it cooks a FET, the capacitor would not have helped in that scenario. If you blow up a FET on a crash where the PID loop might have been asking for all the power that the motors could give, and then they hit something and they stop and maybe even reverse, that's a scenario where a capacitor may have helped. There's a back EMF that goes. The battery itself is kind of a giant capacitor, but having an actual low ESR capacitor on there can help. So yeah, this might have survived maybe with an external capacitor, but boy is it a bitch to fit them in these builds. And if the capacitor breaks off, or like if one of the legs on the capacitor breaks, it restarts beta flight. That's another great way to lose a rig. And so it's really tough on these super tight itty bitty builds to find a good spot for the capacitor. It has to be really, really close to the battery leads for it to do anything. So that's tough. That's really, really tough. I was putting 42 plus amps through this thing. And so I was really knocking on the door of that 12 amps per channel. And so even if it had a capacitor and it had lived through that crash, I don't think it would have lived that much longer. But yeah, it's a great question, WK. If you have a frame that you can squeeze a capacitor in and have it secured so that there's no way in a really hard hit or with the continued vibrations that one of the legs is going to break off, do it. Capacitors never hurt. If you can ever put a capacitor on a build, do it. But these little builds, it's really, really tough. Dannon with a 10-pound super chat for the 04 Light Fund. Thank you, dude. Where are we at here? Here we are. So yeah, I'm going to be ordering a Flywoo 04 Light. It's actually in this here shopping cart. I'm going all the way, yo. I'm getting the MP66 gyro on it. We'll get to try that, see how that is. Sorry, I forgot to change the scene. And it is expensive. This is a bit much. But yeah, for science, I'm very curious how the MP66 gyro will handle a really high RPM kind of setup, and so I am going to be buying one of these. Thank you for donating to the fund here for us to be able to test it. That is very, very cool of you. There we go. And actually, I changed my mind. I was gonna do the regular gyro because we kind of have. I think there is a solution to the regular gyro here, close on the horizon. Thanks to Jamie Fly's FPV and GyroFlow. And so I was previously planning. I have to put these funds higher because YouTube takes 30% of super chats. And so now that I decided to do that lower cycle rate gyro, I am actually going to kick this up to 200. So there you go. Thank you, Dannon. Very, very cool of you. Gustos waving hi. Teddy Bear FPV says hello. Off Axis says, sure is. You do so much for the hobby. I don't mind. Dude, thank you, brother. Very, very, very cool. Off Axis, where can people go? Where are you hanging out the most? Where do you want more awesome FPV people to be hanging out? Off Axis most recently sent me an invite to a Discord that I didn't know exists called the Numb Thumb Tribe Rotor Village Discord, which is super cool. That might be a spot. How do people get there? And or yeah, I think you have your own Discord, don't you? Or is it just the long range Discord that I see you posting in all the time? I am in so many goddamn Discord channels. It is so difficult to keep in touch. I think there's a it's either yours specifically or a Canadian FPV. What is it? FPV Your World. There it is. FPV Your World. Yeah. FPV space Your Space World on Discord is a spot where I see Off Axis posting all the time. I think it might actually be his. But yeah, how do people get to either one of those Discords? Let them know. Off Axis is an OG in the community. He has also done a lot for this community. We're very, very, very lucky to have him. He says he also says, dude, they're priced at $208 Canadian at RVS with my Discord, the Flywoo Wide. 208 for the Flywoo Wide. Oof, that's a lot. Yeah, I was kind of surprised at these prices here, but man, that to get this MP66 gyro, Flywoo is doing work, and it's a $20 increase in price. I will gladly pay someone else $20 to use a hot air station to remove a gyro and put a better gyro on there. That is a deal. But $180 for what is essentially a glorified DJI 04 Lite, that's a lot of money. Let's not forget that here. Never forget this. DJI 04 air unit, right? Light is the word that we use, but DJI does not use the word light, right? Never forget this. Never forget this, friends. This is what you can sometimes get the 04 Lite for. It's actually only $110, right? Always keep that in mind. That is the actual price of this. The first one that I bought, I paid $110 for. So yeah, when you go from 110 to 180, that's pretty crazy. But obviously we've, Flywoo is doing a lot of work here. They're giving us the wide angle housing and lens, and in my case they're going to swap the gyro out, and so there's a lot being done here. Dannon says, talking about 04 wide from Flywoo, just bought Firefly 20 Pro wide, and I guess I'm unlucky because first there was no OSD from Betaflight, and then I completely lost vision in very short time. Send it back. Contact them. Flywoo, I believe, but definitely DJI. DJI has been phenomenal with dealing with repairs with these things, and a lot of times they'll repair it, replace it for free. So yeah, contact Flywoo first. See if they'll help you out. If they won't help you out, contact DJI. Hopefully you can get that replaced. It's going to take a little time, but it's worth it. Phil Bradley says, are there any alternatives to the analog Mobula 8 when it comes to 2S closed prop? So when we start talking about analog on 2S, 12 amp is absolutely fine. And so Happy Model X12 is a great option if you're going to be in the Mobile 7 V3 or V4 frame. Most of these 12 amp 2S AIOs are going to be completely fine. The Flywoo, the JHE MCU that I just blew up here would be totally fine. The Get Bar C Taker is going to be completely fine. So yeah, lots of options, lots and lots of options for that setup. The easy option is going to be the Happy Model X12. I have a whole bunch of Happy Model X12s running that have just been absolutely bulletproof. There's actually one in here on 2-inch props getting abused, which has been bulletproof. There's another open prop rig there with an X12, and then I got one or two 1.6 inch prop whoops with them. So yeah, Happy Model X12 is great. The Happy Model X14 also seems pretty good. There's something that annoys me about the X14 though. I forget what it is, but yeah, either one of these are going to be great. There's the JHE MCU option. This HGLRC Spectre is kind of okay. It doesn't really work on 1S though, which kind of sucks. These other ones do, but this HGLRC Spectre seemed like it was all right. I don't think it blew up yet. And then there is this Flywoo option here. I would go with the newer Flywoo stuff though, with the white PCBs. They've been really, really, really phenomenal. But yeah, lots of options for analog. Shankin says, "Nice T-shirt. Would love to see you at the event next year." I would love to be able to go to all these FPV events, but Jesus, airfare has become expensive. Because punishing trans people and gay people is way more important than every single person in this entire country having a half decent way of life. And never mind. But yeah, it's just so expensive to travel nowadays, and doing FPV as a full-time gig, as not one of like the original 15 heavy hitters from back in the day, it's super tough, super tough. It's more than it's worth it for me to make those sacrifices, but there are sacrifices. And so yeah, and like an FPV trip, it doesn't make me any money. Like there's I haven't figured out a way to make any money with an FPV trip other than if I can somehow book a gig at the same time as the FPV gig, at which point I'll be at the gig and not at the FPV event. But if I can get them like one day apart, but like finding FPV flying gigs is unbelievably difficult. So yeah, that's super tough. But CMYK FPV did this design, and I absolutely love this design. I love that it's not an AI slop design first and foremost, but also it's just really, really cool. I'm so thrilled to finally see people getting so sick and tired of the AI style of graphic design. And finally people are starting to push back against it. It's just so unimaginative, and I don't like it. I don't like that it's putting artists out of work first and foremost, but I also think it looks like shit. Like, yeah, sure, like for the first 15 times that you saw it, you were like, oh shit. But now it's just the same thing over and over again, and now it's nice to see people being like, oh god, this is just so fucking obnoxious. And it's funny because like for a couple months it stood out, and now it doesn't stand out anymore because so many people are using it. So thank God. Proper graphic design will hopefully come back in short order. Ryan Sadat says, I think what annoyed you about the X14, yeah, that's what it was the new beta flight and the lack of compatibility with the app. Yeah, which has gotten better. Yeah, the X14, you have to use the new 2025 versions of beta flight, which forces you to use the online Betaflight, which I don't like as much as the old school Betaflight application on my computer. But the online version of Betaflight has gotten a lot better, and so that probably doesn't matter as much, if at all, anymore. Phil Bradley says, did I see you racing the Nürburgring the other day? Ever fancied it for real? It's a great track. Proper couple of laps at Nürburgring is absolute bucket list shit for me in a half decent car on some sticky tires. That would be, yeah. Good chance I'll never get to do it. Being able to do it in the sim with VR on a half decent sim rig is amazing. I'm a lucky human being to get to experience that. And so yeah, I'm not going to be a total fucking crybaby and nah, I can't. I might never be able to spend $5,000 to $10,000 on a trip to Germany, and a rental track tool and to get to actually drive it. But yeah, total bucket list. There's a bunch of stuff in Europe that are bucket list items for me. Trip to Amsterdam to just experience that madness. Goodwood attending the Goodwood Festival of Speed, or the members meeting. 24 hours of Le Mans. 24 hours of Nürburgring would be insane too, but if I'm going to the Nürburgring, I'm going for a tourist day. I'm going to drive it. That's what I would want much more. Yeah, those are all big time bucket list shit for me. I tend to not live in a world of those like hugely lofty goals. I tend to be as realistic as I possibly can, and so in actuality, goals for me are to hopefully get my Miata back someday, and get back out to some autocrosses. I spent my late 20s and early 30s as a bit of a track rat at as many autocrosses as I could get to, typically like 2 or 3 a month. And then I was an instructor for autocross and a few track days. And so again, I'm super lucky to have gotten to have that experience with my old 96 Mustang Cobra and then the 99 Miata. But life has changed. I moved on from that. That was back when it was a little bit easier to make money here in the US. That was back when there was a little bit more of a middle class. And it was back when my life was a lot less expensive and a lot simpler. I have a much more rich life now. And things change, and that's okay. Like I said, super lucky to have gotten to do that. I would like to revisit autocross a little bit. My buddy Patrick here locally recently bought a Miata, and so it's like a perfect opportunity to get him and me out to it. I need to just go. You can do what's called two drivering cars at autocross. You have two drivers registered for the same car. There's a separate line in paddock. You take your run, you go into that separate line with all the other two driver cars, and then your second driver jumps in, and then they run, and the starter runs that line twice as often as the single driver cars. And so there's absolutely no reason for him and I to get our asses to one of the local autocrosses here. Autocrosses are typically on Sunday mornings, which I'd have to cancel a live stream for. But yeah, it's just a matter of not motivation, but like I don't know, I haven't done it in a while. Autocross is the cheapest form of motorsport. You should all do it. Usually you can run an autocross for like anywhere between $30 and $40. It is well worth it. It is kind of an all-day thing. The reason why it's so inexpensive is that when you're not driving, you're working. You're chasing cones and replacing cones when they get hit. You're working paddock. You're working grid. You're announcing. You're working in the truck. You're doing something, and so you get your 2 or 3 or 4 runs in, and then you go work for an hour or two, and like the work is hanging out with other car nerds, and it's super fun, and you meet awesome people and make great friends, and then you'll usually drive one more heat and then maybe work another heat. Every autocross is different. Sometimes like you'll work once. Sometimes they'll do 3 heats. You'll drive 1 heat, you'll work 1 heat, and then you'll hang out 1 heat. Sometimes they do drive, work. It all depends. Every region is different. But if you have any interest in cars whatsoever, get your ass out to an autocross. There will be a local chapter. Typically, they're run through SCCA, but not always. SCCA is the main organizing body for all of the major autocrosses here in the U.S. It's time trials, 1 car out at a time. You will not destroy your car. You will not run wheel to wheel. I can count literally on one hand how many cars I've seen damaged in any way at like over 8 years of autocrosses. You almost certainly will not do any damage to your car. You will wear your tires a little bit. You will wear your brake pads a little bit, but like you can do probably at least 40 or 50 autocrosses before you need to replace any of those things. And so it's very low stress on the car itself. And it is actual motorsport. You will get to actually experience real motorsport. And the people at autocrosses are the most amazing people. They are grassroots. They are into grassroots motorsports. There is very little ego. There is very little money being thrown around. At track days, you tend to get a good amount of assholes that are there to boost their ego rather than to fully appreciate motorsport and the wonderful connection between engineering and driver skill and a lot of other cool kind of things. Being into cars is interesting. Cars, they didn't used to. I sound like a fucking old man, but back in my day, 20 years ago, cars, and specifically motorsport, but just cars in general here in the U.S. was a bit of a niche kind of hobby, and the people that were into it were by and large like good people. And then the Fast and Furious movies ruined everything. And like I say that like a little bit tongue in cheek, but a lot not tongue in cheek. The Fast and Furious movies made cars cool and tuner culture cool, but in general made cars cool. And when something becomes cool, it attracts douchebags. And I've watched the thing in the world that I love like the absolute most, and still to some extent do. I love FPV, but like cars is my fucking OG obsession. It's been really hard to watch it get just shit on by so many dumb fucks that are not into it for like the art of motorsport, and they're just in it to like be cool and to, you know, get clout and it's so hard. it's so difficult now. But there are still pockets of amazing people in the world of cars and in the world of motorsport. You just got to find them. It's yeah. Portals End says, take a bunch of merch. I do, yeah. I do go to a couple FPV events a year, and I do bring as much merch as I can. And sometimes I'll make like maybe $100. Usually not, though. People, I don't know. I'm not a popular enough entity to be able to sell much merch. So yeah, unfortunately it doesn't really work. Hey Ryan says, been on travel from the west to east, wrapped up the 04 Light fund via PayPal. Holy shit. Hold on. Actually don't have my my email opened. Come on, mail. Open. Ryan Scott, holy shit, with an $85 PayPal. Brother. Incredible. I got to take the 1 out of there, too. Look at that, friends. The 04 Light Wide Fund has been completed. he says, on to the next fun deal. Luckily, that's easy because I have a shopping cart going here. How do I get the actual cart opened up? We are going to do a Goku F405 HD 1 to 2S 12 amp ELRS AIO fund next. Because I want to push one of those really, really hard. I only have one of them, and it's actually this one right here. This is my Goku F405. This is getting moved from this Bando Turtle 2.5 to this Bando Turtle 2, and it'll almost certainly live forever in here. I want to push one of these AIOs to the point where it blows up, and that's going to happen here. And so, yeah, I'm very curious if the this one blew up here because it's JHEMCU versus Flywoo. I don't want to just blow this one up because it's got the 04 with it. And so we're going to shift. We're going to do a new fund here. This fly is driving me absolutely mad. Take ELRS out of there. Oh man, that's so long. We'll see, even take F405 out of there. That should work. $80, so we actually have to do 100. And dude, so cool. Thank you so much. I gotta take more out of this. 12 amp. We know it's 1 to 2S because it's 12 amp. There we go. That fits. Perfect. There you go, friends. Ryan, thank you so much, man. Very, very, very kind of you. When you say you've been traveling from the west to east in the U.S., where are you going? Phil Bradley says that sounds like a quality road trip. I know, right? Dannon says mentioning racing in GT7. Any recommendations on the rig for this one? I always loved sim racing, but definitely need to buy a steering wheel at some point. Plus everything else. Play seat challenge. So my requirements for a sim rig were it had to be cheap, and it had to be fold upable. It couldn't just be like gigantic, taking up lots of space. And so I went with this old school play seat challenge. This is like the weird NASCAR version, but it's a little bit cheaper at $229. This guy here folds up. The top of this seat meets with the front of the steering wheel. The pedals, they fold up into here. And so the X of the seat and the steering wheel does this, and then the pedals fold up like that, and it ends up taking up like almost just this much space. And it's easy. You easily fold it up. You fold the pedals first, I think. I haven't folded mine up in a while, but at my old apartment, I had a spot between like the door and another door that was like this big, and I could so easily just lop the pedals up, smack this thing together, and slide it across. It was just so cool. It's lightweight. It's cheap. It's not the most sturdy thing in the world, but it's sturdy enough. And so, yeah, play seat challenge. The price is incredible too. Most of the chair setups are closer to this kind of price point. This is a setup that looks like it might also fold up, but it's, you know, almost twice as expensive. It's probably more sturdy. The more money you spend, the more sturdy it is, but typically the more space it takes up. So yeah, for me, it was all about, this is the actual play seat that I have. It doesn't have the stupid NASCAR stuff on it, but yeah, whatever. So yeah, play seat challenge, I've had really, really, really good luck with. There's other options, but yeah, the prices go pretty crazy. For the steering wheel, it was back when I bought it, it was the Thrustmaster T300, which I don't really think you can get anymore. I believe they've discontinued it. This is also awful expensive for it. Back when I got it, I think it was like $250. This is kind of a lot, but everything has gone up in price. I ended up also buying the Thrustmaster really nice gated shifter, which is, as you can see, pretty expensive. But boy, is that a big part of the immersion. There is, I believe... look, sim racing is a way more popular hobby than FPV, so it's pretty easy to find reviews and good content about this stuff. So look that up, set a budget, put an ironclad budget. Like $1,000 is a really solid budget to have. You can get a really decent setup. I think my setup is within that $1,000, even with these prices having gone up. That is, of course, I already had the PlayStation. I already had Gran Turismo 7. If you put those in there, $1,000 is probably not going to do it for you. What most people will tell you to do is to build a gaming PC. That budget goes right out the fucking window there. If there's a gaming PC involved, I don't know if you're going to be able to do something for less than $2,000 at this point. But yeah, set your budget and you can get something within that budget that's pretty damn good. My setup is very entry level, like very, very, very entry level. You can spend 10 times as much in a heartbeat. Like, so Steele Davis, for example, when he wanted to get into sim racing, he told a guy that builds sim racing rigs, I believe the number was 15 grand. And the guy built him a setup with gaming PC, and yeah, it was triple screens, which means one screen in front, one on the left, one on the right, tied together. And that 15K number was like easy. It was easy to hit that number. And like, he doesn't even have like the best setup ever. His setup is probably pretty like mid-level. I would say like between mid and high level kind of setup. It's pretty fucking nice. But yeah, you can spend an awful lot of money really fast. This fly is really going for it. But yeah, set that budget, because woo-wee, this shit gets expensive. And look, my setup, like if I doubled the budget, it would get noticeably better. The steering wheel that I have is belt driven, which is better than gear driven, but it's not as good as direct drive. The direct drive setups are better for sure, but they're a lot more expensive. The Playseat Challenge is really decent, but it's not great. Spending twice as much money, it gets noticeably better. If you then double the money again, it doesn't get that much better. Like this setup that I've got is like the best, I think, in terms of like bang for your buck. It's really good. And with the PSVR 2 and the right car, and when I'm in the right mood, I will forget that I'm in a sim rig and I will just drive. And that's all you want, right? Like that's what you should be shooting for, in my opinion. Like if it cost me $10,000 more and I'm not gonna believe that I'm driving $10,000 more, you know what I'm saying? Like for me, it's spend as little money as possible to get enough immersion that you're just driving, because that's the whole point of driving sims, is to fool yourself into thinking that you're actually just driving. And so, yeah, I've been incredibly happy with that setup. A big part of that is the $200 gated shifter, but the experience of shifting a manual car is a very visceral, very experience that connects you to the machine. And so this is an important part of the deal. And there are a couple little upgrades that you can do here and there to these things, which do help a little bit, which are pretty inexpensive. But yeah, a lot of different options. Thrustmaster is a really good company. They make really, really, really good, inexpensive wheels. Logitech makes even less expensive wheels that are typically gear driven and will wear out. Don't do that. You'll spend less money, but it'll wear out and it's going in the dumpster and you got to rebuy. The lowest you want to go is Thrustmaster belt driven. But if possible, direct drive will never wear out. There is no belt to wear out. And there are some direct drive setups that are coming down in price. The other inexpensive but really good company that is more expensive than Thrustmaster is, Jesus Christ, Fanatec. And so Thrustmaster and Fanatec are where you want to be. Thrustmaster has a direct drive wheel. I forget which one it is. I think it's this it might be this T248 here. That's really, really good. But yeah, like I said, sim racing is a massively popular hobby that you'll find loads of reviews. Jimmy Broadbent is my favorite content creator around sim racing. He is a fellow mental health torturee. He is like as big as it gets, but super down to earth, amazing human being. There are lots of other great guys. If you're going to go down the Gran Turismo 7 rabbit hole, which I do recommend, Super GT has a lot of older content out there. He doesn't do that much recently because he's got a real steed and real race cars. But yeah, there's lots of cool content creators out there. Dan and FPV with a 10-pound super chat for the Goku fund. Thank you, dude. Let's get it going. Awesome. Look at that. And then Portal's End with a $5 super chat. Flywoo for the win. AIO fund. Sick, man. Thank you, guys. There's that fly again. All right, it's 15 after 5. Let's get this wrapped up so we can all move on with our Sundays. Where are we at here? If any of you are PlayStation people, for the love of God, add me on there. I'm CiottiFPV. SEEAHHTE. Wait, no, I changed it. I'm CiottiFPV on there. And yeah, get your asses into GT7. Let's. I every once in a while I'll do a GT7 lobby with pretty strict like horsepower and weight limits. And I have a blast in there. Let's get a little Gran Turismo 7 community going. Gran Turismo 7 on the PS5 with PSVR 2 is unbelievably good. It is not as good as iRacing, but iRacing is stupidly expensive. It is not quite as good as Assetto Corsa on PC, but again, crazy expensive. Those are also like entire hobbies in and to themselves. Like you don't just put them on and go. Like it's a whole fucking thing. You'll spend so much time with PC-based sim rigs figuring out the content manager in Assetto Corsa, figuring out iRacing and all that bullshit, getting everything to talk to each other. It's a whole big thing. If you have like the GT7 experience is phenomenal. You plug it in, you go, you spend your time racing, enjoying it, rather than spending your time dicking around with PC settings and all this other nonsense. And so I really, really, really do recommend that setup. And driving sims, in my opinion, are the absolute perfect use of VR. I've used VR in a ton of different settings, and they're all like, this is cool, but it just doesn't work yet. It doesn't track your whole body. It doesn't track the whole room. Like, it's always a bit gimmicky. VR, when you're sitting with a steering wheel and pedals and a shifter, absolutely amazing. It is so goddamn good. Uriel says, before bookings, give me a sign. Nürburgring is 2.5 hour drive from here. No way. Damn. You're a bastard for being that close to it. For Bradley says, you can borrow my golf for a couple of laps if you make it to the ring. Nice. Uriel says, my Today car is not up to it. Prius. You'd be surprised how many cars that aren't up to it go for tourist laps at the Nürburgring. Ant Badge says, have you ever went to a H2O Waterfest car meet in Ocean City, Maryland? No, that's not really my scene. I am a like motorsport and or just like drivable car kind of person. H2O in Ocean City, Maryland, and SOWO was the other big one down here in Helen, Georgia. Those are basically show car meets. Camber gang, cars that really don't perform and are barely drivable, but apparently look cool according to 16-year-olds. Yeah, not my kind of deal, but I try my best to be. I try my best to convince myself that everybody that's into cars helps a little bit. Boy, I have a hard time believing that sometimes, especially when I see the stupid ass behavior that a lot of people have at H2O and SOWO. It's so bad that SOWO is actually no longer a thing. They behaved so badly that the city of Helen said, fuck you guys. You're like, yeah, sure, you bring in lots of money, but you're just trashing the town, and it's horrible. And I don't know if H2O is still around either. I've been pretty surprised. If H2O is still around, I'm pretty surprised, because the same kind of deal. It's just people acting like complete assholes and just ruining it. And the cities are just like, no, we don't. There's not enough business that can offset you being this dumb, and people getting hurt, and it's kind of crazy. But yeah, the car show world, the camber gang world, it's not my deal. And unfortunately, there are certainly some great people in those communities, but unfortunately, there are an unbelievable number of just total douche canoes in those communities that have a tendency to ruin it for everyone. And like, I can't. I don't think that those show cars look good. I think they look horrible. But B, I refuse. I can't associate myself with those people, because they give me a bad name, right? Like, I'm a mature human being that is into cars in a way that doesn't ruin it for everyone. But just being into cars, I get lumped in with those assholes. And then, people are like, oh, you're into cars? Oh, you must be an asshole. It's like, well, no, but I get it. I totally understand why you think that. So yeah, not my scene. But FizPV says it also is a performance driving school and can give you a discount on your insurance. I know State Farm does. What is it? It also is a... you're talking about autocross? So the SCCA and many autocross regions, local regions, will also do driver education training and invite normal people that aren't into motorsports to come out and get better at driving. And wow, it makes a massive difference. I've been admittedly a little bit heartbroken that I haven't been able to convince Maggie to join in those. I haven't really tried, to be honest. I am going to see if I can get Florence interested, because I am going to be teaching her to drive over the next year. She just got her permit last week. I am going to try to get her out to one or two of those, because it really does make you safer. Like, understanding how hard a car will brake at the limit and what happens at the limit will absolutely save you from hammering into the back of somebody. Like, when you know how quickly you can slow down, you will know whether or not you're going to slam into the back of that car. And if you practice it a bunch of times, you won't panic, and you'll maybe go around them instead of just standing on the brakes and sliding into the back of them. So it is, just going to an autocross will teach you a shitload, because there are instructors there, and it's just an opportunity to push a car to its actual limit safely. But the driver education programs that the autocross communities put on are even better for just normies that have no interest in motorsport. Fizby says, I just took the results to my insurance agent. The results from an autocross. That's cool. I didn't realize that. That's wild. Euro says, can you imagine they sell cars to that steer themselves like horror? I like to drive. It is getting a little weird. YouTube Did the Thing says, you could say back in the day, cars ruled everything around you. He's referencing one of the best podcasts at the moment, which is called Cream. Cars Rule Everything Around Me, which is Will and Edwin of Top Dead Center, one of my favorite YouTube channels at the moment. Super car nerd stuff, but yeah. Brandon McBean says, I sent you some notes to look at after the screen. Awesome. Thank you, dude. Brandon and I were talking yesterday about when I have like super nerdy FPV shit that I'm really like, the wheels are really turning about. I will commonly message Brandon and or send him videos like, yo, am I crazy for thinking this? And I was in furthering trying to dial these builds in to handle the wind really well. I was sending them some thoughts on like weight versus prop size versus response time and some other stuff. And so we were talking for a little bit yesterday, which is always amazing. Phil Bradley says, nice little rig, quite convenient. What does the steering feel like? It's great. It's not as good as direct drive, but it's way better than gear driven. It has enough force feedback torque that I don't have to run it at 100%. You should never run them at 100% anyway. But yeah, it's great. Hey Ryan says, yeah, in the US, Monterey, California, Newport. Oh my God. So Hey Ryan is going from Newport, Rhode Island to Monterey, California. That is a hell of a road trip. Good Lord. Is that 2,000 miles? Might be a little shy of 2,000 miles. That's a big fucking road trip though. Yosemite, Seattle, Idaho, Big Sky, Montana, Tetons, Wyoming after. Dude, that's awesome. I'm very jealous. That's wild. Dan and F. Wait, I think we got that. Yeah, we got that. Uriel says it's the fun to can have fun for not that much. I have a flight sim set too. Yeah, flight sims are the other amazing use of VR and just sim rigs in general. Uriel says both set up cheap but fun. When I'm down, I drive through the states. Nice. The Tom says another goal for a good capacitor to go with AIO burn tests. It's hard, dude. Testing whether or not a capacitor helps an AIO survive, like, how do you know? Right? You'd have to have two completely identical rigs. You'd have to crash them exactly the same way. Capacitor on these itty bitty rigs, I just don't think it's realistic. I just don't think that there's a good spot for. There's not a good spot for the damn things to fit. And so my approach is going to be no capacitor. Let's try a bunch of different AIOs. Let's see which ones hold up. Let's not drive the AIO to the absolute limit because we know that that commonly causes failures. And yeah, I wish there was a way. I wish there was a better. With these AIOs and just FPV in general, most of the failures happen during hard crashes. And there's no way to simulate a hard crash fairly more than once, repeatably. And so it's realistically impossible to kind of test that. And so when we've got frames where there's not a good spot to securely put a capacitor, for me, I'm just not going to run a capacitor. And that's just is what it is. My frame has a little bit more room for a 3-inch build. You could put a capacitor in it. So yeah, if you can fit one, do it. If you can't, try different AIOs. Eventually you'll find an AIO with enough capacitance on board that it won't blow up. Until it does. They all blow up eventually. Even with a capacitor, all AIOs are still going to fail. Maybe the capacitor will make it last 50 more batteries. Maybe it won't. Maybe the capacitor breaks off, and it's the reason that you lose the whole thing. It's really, really tough. Jay-Z says, have you reviewed the Beta FPV Air camera in 16:9? You know, I still haven't. They sent me one, and I put it here so that I would not forget about it, and I keep forgetting about it. I'm going to put it over here, and maybe I won't forget about it. It's nothing to write home about. The CO3, it doesn't seem to be any better than the CO3. It's a little bit lighter than the CO3. If you want to save a little bit of weight, go for it. If not, the CO3 just works. It's a known quantity. 16:9 is bad. We want 4:3. We don't want more width. We want more height. So 16:9 cameras are a missed opportunity for me. So that's not my deal. Denon says, dude, I love GT7. I'm actually driving right now. Nice. Uriel says, Amsterdam is also a 2-hour drive. I want to dump you there, but don't join you. Sodom and Gomorrah. Go to Banana Bar. Oof, that sounds scary. Dannon says, any love for DTM cars and 190 Evo 2? Very much so. Yeah, DTM cars, that old school box fender style is very, very cool. The 190 Evo is one of my favorite cars of all time. Finally got to like drive it in VR in GT7, and I was a little bit disappointed. It's kind of like a don't meet your heroes situation. It's big, it's heavy, big giant steering wheel, weird seating position in the game. It feels like you're sitting really low. And like, I don't know, the exhaust note is not that great. I'm sure in the real world it's a little bit better. In sims, it's tough. It's tough to get to record the exhausts well. Good God, did Polyphony, the company that makes GT7, do an incredible job recording exhaust sounds. Hands down, like the best job that anybody's ever done. They built a whole big thing and put actual cars in it to record the exhaust sounds, and they did a great job. But there are some cars that just kind of sound underwhelming. They're typically cars that don't rev very high from the factory. You know, we'll see like a crazy hopped up version of a car on YouTube that's got $5,000 put it into the rotating assembly to balance it and lighten it up, and like, yeah, it revs 3,000 extra RPM from the one out of the factory and sounds amazing. Gran Turismo can't do that, right? They can't build a game that allows that kind of insanity, and so that is kind of tough. But yeah, Mercedes-Benz, this is a Merc, by the way, for all the non-car nerds. Mercedes old school, late 80s, early 90s, 190. In Europe, they got the Evo version of it with a big fuck-off wing, awesome air dam, different version of the engine. I think it's a 2.4 four-cylinder. Revy, awesome. But yeah, I was a little disappointed of the version of that in GT7. Yuria says, I enjoyed your content driving the Miata through the States. I enjoyed my SLK 320 like that. Nice. Yeah, my YouTube channel has started with Mustang and then into Miata content. There's a lot of it still on there. And then the last comment of the live stream is from Uriel. He says, I think with VR, I always feel for keyboard, handbrake, etc. My drink. Nice. It is fun to get drunk and drive around in the sim. Can't do it in real life. Thanks for hanging out, friends. My name's Aaron Ciotti. CiottiFPV.com is where you can go to support me. If you love something in the world, support the living shit out of it, because otherwise, eventually, it might go away. And don't let that happen. When you love something, do everything you can to support it. This is a hard lesson learned from someone that I lost to depression/suicide a couple of years ago, but a big lesson for me. And so, yeah, support things, and they'll hopefully stay around. Spread the word, right? Like, do all the things. There's no clips anymore. YouTube removed clips, so you can't make a clip of your favorite moments from these live streams anymore. But you can, like, copy the link and tell it to start at a certain time. So spread the love around. Let's keep hanging out together. I'll be back, tomorrow night? Yeah, tomorrow night we're live streaming. And then no Wednesday stream. No Friday stream either. I will be on a little family vacation in Tennessee. So that'll be nice to unplug for a minute. But I'll be back on Sunday. So 1 week from today, after tomorrow. Cool? Be good, people. Love you. Bye. I'm not ready. Here is the battery that I didn't play at the beginning of the live stream from me flying this amazing little 2S 04 Lite 1102 18,000 kV Gemfan 1610 propellered Mobula 7 V3 framed 2S 300 mAh BT 3.0 build with the non-adjustable up tilt Mobula 7 camera. 1, 2, 3, 4. Is it this file? It's this file. When I played you guys this file. I didn't play this file. Here you go. I'll see you guys tomorrow night. Later.
Yeah.
where the grass grows wild. CiottiFPV's goggles locked, grinning like a child. Teddy Spaghetti's fur flies and jet wash dreams, yeah. Chasing small whoops like a dog possessed fiend. Eyes on a neon blur, hard in the chase. Big fuzz and prop spin all tangled in place, yeah. Four-legged rebel with a rotor stir tail. In the circus of the sky, they never fail. CiottiFPV, Teddy Spaghetti, dynamic duo kings, barking at the breeze, throttling at top speed, they zooming through hoops, flipping in style. That schnauzer's got throttle and a toothy smile. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Soddy's on sticks, Teddy's on paws. Side by side, legends breaking all the laws. Through the kitchen, over couch scale terrain. Backyard mayhem in their flight domain. No ground too sacred, no loop too tight. Fuzz, fuel, fury ignites the night. When pilot and pup lock eyes on the prize, every whoop they conquer is a fresh cut surprise, yeah. Yo, Soddy behind the sticks, Teddy's leading the pack. Prop guard missiles unleashed, never looking back. No leash, no map, just freestyle mic. They on the dog drone streets every day and night. Said whoops, hitting low, gotta nail the dive. Teddy push throttle up, feel the beast come alive. I see the neon arc, got the sticks locked in, Teddy. Yeah, let's rip this loop, ride the roar of the wind, Teddy. Yep. Yeah, CiottiFPV, Teddy Spaghetti, diamond and duo kings, barking at the breeze, throttling at top speed, zooming through hoops, flipping in style. That schnauzer's got throttle and a toothy smile. Teddy Spaghetti. Barking at the breeze, throttling at top speed, things zooming through hoops, flipping in style. That schnauzer's got throttle and a toothy smile. Yeah, when you hear that bar cut the rotor hum, you know Ciotty and Teddy's mission's just begun. FPV's fur-faced legends, legends singing loud. Yeah, Teddy Spaghetti and CiottiFPV.